All right, good evening. Welcome, everyone. It's my absolute honor to introduce a veteran like Usha Lachungpa. Usha is joining us from the enchanting Himalayan state of Sikkim. She's one of the most prominent voices for the rich biodiversity of Sikkim. Usha joined, just a little bit about her background. She joined BNHS while she was still in school. And then later she got groomed as a field biologist under the stalwarts like Salim Ali, J.C. Daniel, and Asad Rehmani. Since then, she has pursued her childhood interest in wildlife and outdoors, trekking, hiking in the Western Ghats, Sikkim, and then other parts of India. With a career spanning 31 years in wildlife, she has been a field researcher with Sikkim Forest, Environment, and Wildlife Management Department before she retired as a Principal Chief Research Officer and Additional Director of Sikkim Biodiversity Board in 2017. Usha has single-handedly added more species to Salim Ali's Birds of Sikkim book, which was the most authentic first book that came out. And she's conducted awareness about state's rich biodiversity. She's an active conservationist, a state coordinator, IBCN and BNHS. And many of you would recognize her as the co-author of the book, Important Bird Areas of Sikkim, with Asad Rehmani. She's also a founder member of NGOs Green Circle Sikkim and Sikkim Ornithological Society. Well, I could go on, but I think we'll just hand over to Usha. But without mentioning one fun fact, I don't think we'll do justice to her introduction. Can you believe what her two daughters are named as? They're named as Minla and Yohina. Her love for birds couldn't have been more profound than that, isn't it? So over the next 1 hour, we have an exclusive privilege of listening in to this wonderfully charmed life that Usha has led. Over to you, Usha.
Yeah, thanks, Soma. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you loud and clear. Go on.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Delhi Bird, for giving me this opportunity. I'm quite nervous, actually. I'm seeing all these names entering here, and really some really big names also. So it's really humbling also. I'd like to start off by saying that the timing of this program, during this time when, because of the pandemic, our whole, like the human population seems to be just careening down this slope, dangerously slippery slope towards more pathogens. And at such a time, Sikkim seems to hold some kind of, I should say, a message or, a way forward for people if they want to, have a happier and a healthier life. So with that, I would just like to start off by saying that I'm showing here a picture of the state bird of Sikkim, the blood pheasant, which is also there in the Sikkim Ornithological Society logo. And we started Green Circle as, I think it was in 1994. So it's one of the oldest environment NGOs. And the Sikkim Ornithological Society is the only one which is actually concerned with the conservation of birds of Sikkim. So I'll just go to, I'll run a few slides of my childhood, I would say, or my youth. I started off with BNHS when I was in class 12. And we had this wonderful bird ringing camp at Point Calumet. And that's me in the blue dress with Renee standing behind me. And most of you, or all of you, would be knowing Dr. Renee Borges. So we were learning from Dr. Robert Grubb, how to ring birds. So that's where I started learning. And of course, every opportunity to go to field was a learning experience. And there hasn't been a single time when I couldn't have come away without having learned something or the other. And then actually, I'll come to the Sikkim trip later because that was in 1980, our first 1-month expedition to Sikkim. But there was this 1-month-long workshop in the Kanha National Park where again, Mr. Daniel from BNHS had sent Renee and myself to attend. We were the only 2 ladies, I think, at that time. And that was again, just before the Wildlife Institute actually was even born. So this whole workshop seems to have been during that time when everybody was young, Mr. Vinod Rishi, Mr. V.V. Saharia, you can see him sitting there to the left. So everyone like this seems to be like, the birthing place of the WII, as that's what I feel. And then again, the next year was the centenary of BNHS. And something very interesting here, so then the media came to cover the program and we were all allotted our places, So I was looking at the collection in the herpetology in the reptile section. And I happened to pick up this head of this snake. And when I looked at it, I saw, you can see in the picture below, that this was the king cobra, which was collected from Gangtok in 1923 by no one, no less than F.M. Bailey. It has this BNHS number and all. So this was my first link that, my God, this king cobra used to be found in Gangtok, the capital of Sikkim, which is so overcrowded now. But, that now if you see king cobras, we are now sighting them quite regularly since 2009. And after that, then I spent some time in the hydrobiology project at Bharatpur. And then with Dr. Hemani for 2 years, we were with the BNHS Endangered Species Project and sitting in that hide, for hours together to look at a florican's behavior. This is the lesser florican in its breeding best, I would say. So we would sit in this hide, watch the birds. And then, of course, we had the star bird trappers, the Mirshikars like Ali Hussain. Ali Hussain is standing behind me, and Dr. Salim Ali came all the way to ring this first florican. So it was really, that was the time when I was using an old camera, which was like my uncle's camera, with black and white photographs in it. So this was taken by some forest department gentleman, and I was very happy to have a copy with, wow, the lesser florican, Dr. Salim Ali, forest officials, and best of all, Ali Hussain behind me. Without him, I don't think most of us BNHS researchers, we could have done much without him and his son Mehboob and the other trappers. So coming to Sikkim, 1980 was our first trip. As you can see here, the small state of Sikkim occupies just 0.02% of India. And in 0.02% is more than the diversity of all species. Like birds is supposed to be the richest, again butterflies, then orchids, rhododendrons. Sikkim falls in the entire like Eastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot. So we are right bang in the middle of it, and we are also right in the middle of the East Asian Australasian flyway for migratory birds. So it's a very strategic location. Also, like some of the feathers we wear in our cap is, we are in the youngest mountains in the world. We are in the highest mountains in the world. What you see over here is the country's largest, highest peak, Mount Kanchenjunga, which is worshipped as the guardian deity of the state. And we actually get a holiday to worship the mountain. It's amazing. You can see the Mount Kanchenjunga from almost anywhere in the state. And it's worshipped by almost all communities and all kinds of people in Sikkim. So that, and then of course, naturally, it's the highest peak in India. So the Kanchenjunga National Park, this is the Kanchenjunga National Park, the highest altitude national park in the country. And as you can see, there are two main valleys over here. This is the Lachung Valley, where the village of Lachung is there, where my husband is. And the other valley is Lachen. This is the Lachen Valley, which actually starts, the river which starts here is on these great lakes in the Tibetan plateau, the Ladakh part of Sikkim. And from there, the river Teesta, the principal river, which is also in all the folk tales of the state, So this flows down and it meets this river called the Little Rangit and joins the Great Rangit to flow out of Sikkim into the Bay of Bengal. And so our state is drained, all these valleys are drained by these. There is this huge glacier here, probably the largest glacier called the Zemu Glacier. And this is the North Lonak and the South Lonak glaciers from where the Gomachu, another river, joins the Teesta. So the best part is the Teesta Khangse Glacier from where our river is born. Now, all these areas I had the luxury of visiting, and it was like, how J.D. Hooker might have felt when he traveled this place. Because 30 years ago, it was very different from what it is now. So even then, when I was in the department, I went off to do a 9-month diploma course at the WII. And there people might have heard of Rogers and Pawar. And Dr. Alan Rogers they were doing the biogeographic map of in the country, and they said Ladakh is Trans-Himalaya. So I said, no, we've got a piece of Trans-Himalaya in Sikkim. And he said, no, then I had to show pictures of the Tibetan wild ass and the other species that we have. And so then the WIA has got Trans-Himalayas is like 1 and Sikkim part is like 1A. So the Sikkim Himalayas, Trans-Himalayas were also included in the biogeographic map of the country, thanks to this knowledge that we also have the same species that are in Ladakh, but kind of, telescoped into a very small area. So because of which the problems in Ladakh are kind of, condensed and magnified in that sense in Sikkim. So we'll not talk about the problems right now, because I would just like to introduce you to the situation, which is really exciting. After 18 years after Dr. Salim Ali authored the book on the birds of Sikkim, this was a book commissioned by the Chogyal. The Maharaja of Sikkim is called the Chogyal, Palden Thondub Namgyal of the Namgyal dynasty. And best of all, it was published by the Forest Department way back in 1962. So when we visited in 1980, that was like 18 years after Dr. Salim Ali's book. And we did our survey, we went back, then I did the projects, I joined the projects. And only when we wanted to raise a family, when we wanted to start our family, we shifted to Sikkim because I wanted to have my babies at high altitude. And that was really something very interesting for me, because I could enjoy all the natural history part of all that I had learned in the BNHS, and to see whether I could do that kind of work here in Sikkim itself. And 10 years later, there was another BNHS camp, and this is Zongri in West Sikkim, where the first camp we had also been there. Aarti, Manik Mistry, Ullas Rane, whom we've lost, Ms. Marceline Almeida, myself, and Meena Haripal. There was Meena was our group leader. So after that, the book, when I came to Sikkim, I found out that the Birds of Sikkim book is not available in Sikkim. So it was really very sad. I looked for the book everywhere. And suddenly one day, Miss Ritchie, the Scottish principal of the girls' school in Gangtok, she sent a message to my office to come. I don't know how she knew, I was in BNHS, from BNHS, and I knew something about birds. So she said, there's a strange bird lying dead in my courtyard. Please come and look at it. So when I looked at it, she took out Dr. Salim Ali's book. So, when we travel in the field in BNHS during our outings, we used to say, have you carried Salim Ali? Have you carried this? Have you carried that? We mentioned the book by the authors. So she was having Salim Ali. And then when we identified the bird and I found out that this book is not available, I approached my department and they said, we don't have funds to publish 100 copies. So then I went to the most important man in Sikkim for conservation ideas. His name is Mr. K.C. Pradhan. So Mr. K.C. Pradhan was running, he's a very senior official in the government, but he had an NGO called the Sikkim Nature Conservation Foundation. And he said, only 100 copies, let's make 1,000 copies, and that was almost unbelievable, because the government department don't have funds. Here an NGO is having funds. So suddenly, Salim Ali was back in Sikkim. So as all thanks to Miss Ritchie and me finding out the book was not there. So even during talking about the first trip, I'd like to share this photograph of Mr. Hussain. S.A. Hussain, I don't think anyone is there who doesn't know him from my time. Hussain was one of my main mentors, and I really looked up to whatever he had to say and the knowledge that he had to share. So when he heard we were going to Sikkim, when Meena Haripal was planning our visit, he said, oh, wow, you're going to Sikkim, you'll see flocks of laughing thrushes, you'll see white-crested laughing thrushes, you'll see this, you'll see that, and he made our trip, even more exciting before even we went there. And how did we go there? We went on this grand budget of 3,000 rupees for 6 people, which WWF had given us. And it was the first member expedition, BNHS member expedition to Sikkim. And even now, it was the Forest Department which supported us for our 1-month-long stay. And we visited various parts. We tried to look at the birds, the butterflies. Almeida and Ullas and Manik looked at all the plants, the ferns. And it was really an exciting and eye-opening trip. Trekking up, this is the first mountain trip that I had ever done, Our socks were always like full of blood in the evening because of the blisters which had burst. And it was really, I mean, it was very fantastic. My mother had stitched our first, rucksack on, which was like carrying a building on my back, you know. That time we all used to carry our own luggage. It was very exciting. And of course, you know, Mr. Daniel, without whom, I mean, I wouldn't have done all the work that I did, or, you know, the kind of interest he showed. He was kind enough to put a picture of the Sikkim snow toad in his book. And then, of course, Meena did The Butterflies of Sikkim, which was the first kind of comprehensive book on butterflies. And we really kind of tried to go ahead on this. So after Green Circle, this is Mr. K.C. Pradhan, the senior gentleman. This is Mount Kanchenjunga at the back in the picture. Mr. K.C. Pradhan started this. They have Mr. Karma Takapa. They had an NGO called the Sikkim Foundation. And the Sikkim Foundation kind of set the stage for the Sikkim Ornithological Society, because Mr. K.C. Pradhan said that we need an NGO, you know, to work on the birds and butterflies of Sikkim. So the Sikkim Nature Conservation Foundation, the Sikkim Foundation, you know, we all started out and they helped set up SOS, for which we are really grateful. And in the meantime, the Sikkim Foundation brought out these small folders on pictures which were done by a Nepal artist called Hiralal Dangol and his wife. So these were the first kind of things, because at that time also cameras was not such a big thing. It was not easily affordable, and we didn't have so many pictures of birds. And even the books we referred to were all paintings of birds. So this was a big effort. But then in marches Cheong Bonpo, you know, one of our star birders, he brought out recently a book on the birds of Sikkim, a pictorial guide of 100 species, 100 birds, 50% are passerines, 50 non-passerines. And with Cheong Bonpo's book, it became the first kind of pictorial book. But who kind of mentored Cheong Bonpo and another young gentleman called Lakpa Tenzing was Peter, you know, Peter Lobo. Peter Lobo is this gentleman over here, and I'd like to call him the gadget man, because we invited him to come and train the young people. We started 2 bird clubs, one at a local school in Sikkim at Pelling, and one at a place called Yambong. And we had this gentleman over here, you know, and Peter asked him casually, he said, how much do you earn as a porter? So he said, 300 rupees. So Peter said, I earn 3,000 rupees, so I don't even have to carry a bag, you know. And that was the first person I had seen who was, you know, had a camera, had binoculars, had GPS, had a mobile phone. And it was like, you know, and he was really like very impressive. And here, this is Dipankar Ghosh, who's with WWF now, amazing artist. So he also helped to, in 2006, we did this. So this was the starting, like Peter trained 2 of our young people, you know, Chong and Lakpa as birders. And from there on, actually, people started realizing, okay, you know, this is a wonderful kind of hobby, come lucrative kind of way of earning money. At the same time, you know, since you have to go into the forest, so you have to be careful about, you know, maintaining the natural beauty and learning about birds. And if you learn about birds, then you can't do it noisily. So, and plus walking so much, you know, your health is good. You learn patience, and, you know, you earn a lot of money by showing what we would consider common species would be very rare for most of the people coming from outside to visit. So this kind of luxury kind of tourism, you know, ecotourism, which is very sustainable, it kind of happened slowly. And then slowly the social media also came in, and suddenly, like, you know, all these young people with cameras and binoculars and mobile phones, you know, long lenses happened in Sikkim. And Sikkim is such a place where I told you the Mount Kanchenjunga, visible from almost everywhere, the guardian deity of the state. So this is, the mountain gives this whole area, which is earlier called Bayul Demazong, or the hidden land, like Shangri-La, you know, most people know it as Shangri-La. The hidden land where, you know, everything is sacred. The landscape is sacred, the rocks are sacred, you know, there are monasteries and there are forests, sacred forests, then there are sacred lakes. And this was again one of the initiatives of Green Circle, where we try to ensure that the lake doesn't get polluted. And if you look at the atmosphere, it's always like very unpredictable weather, raining or foggy. And there still, you'll have prayer flags fluttering, you'll have birds sitting around, rhododendrons in bloom, orchids. So I mean, I'll be just showing you a tip of the iceberg that is Sikkim. So when you start from down, you see that, here again are all the birds that many of you will be very familiar with. But for the people in Sikkim, actually taking a photograph earlier, when I used to go with binoculars, people would say, she's from Bombay, she's like a little weird maybe, But then one of our forest officers started going in the forest with binoculars, and they said, oh, the poor man, he's not getting married, so he got mad. So he's going around in the forest with binoculars. And that was the kind of the feeling that people had. But then when the young photographers started taking pictures and then started looking at their own photographs, I mean, they were hooked for life. And the kind of information that they started gathering, knowingly or unknowingly, is just adding up with every single day. And my surveys were really nothing compared to the kind of information that is coming in now, because I was all alone during my time. Nobody was there to kind of even come with me to the field. Sometimes I would say, here's Minla with a hoot that she rescued during a river rafting expedition, a training program. And I'm showing this just because of the previous picture, who I have given credit to Matrika Sharma, who's a young, very humble, soft-spoken school teacher who started documenting butterflies and moths and learning life cycles and documenting these. I mean, that kind of teacher, we have more and more in Sikkim, and we really be blessed. So I had to show these pictures, especially this, Matrika he has photographed this neon cuckoo bee, which I don't think anyone has recorded. Like, I checked the records of ZSI and other researchers, and nobody has documented neon cuckoo bees, which are cuckoo because they are parasitic on bees, other bees. They do exactly what birds. Very interesting. Again, Matrika has unknowingly contributed, I think, something really interesting to the scientific knowledge of Sikkim. And again, the Dr. Pemal Lachungpa, he's an engineer. He has been now trying to take photographs of the water birds that are coming to the reservoir in North Sikkim, which has been dammed up, and the Tista has been dammed up, and there is a whole issue going on about dams and idle power. So Dr. Salim Ali had written how this entire river system is a major flyway for migratory birds, and it just proves it. So these are some of the pictures of the pochards, the pintails and widgeons. And of course, I mean, it's just around my house. I mean, these are not good pictures because I took them, but you can see, this is blue-winged Minla. This is what we used to call, yellow-naped Uina. Now it is a whiskered Uina. And if I had a third baby, I was to name her Sidya, which Lima has done now. And then, of course, we've got these white-backed munias. We've got any number of Leothrix, Pekin robin, which look unattractive here, but it's probably the most attractive bird. I mean, for me, like a bird knowledgeable person, is like Dr. Ali Hussain, I would say. But Ali Hussain, when we were trapping birds in Sikkim for ringing, he got so many of these, he started saying, Sahab, ye to pugnax hai yahan ka. Because in Bharatpur, we used to keep getting rough and reef all the time, most of the birds. So they used to just put their hands in the basket and they used to say, Sahab ye hai, Sahab wo hai. We used to just ring hundreds and hundreds of birds, like almost blindly every day, noting down everything, tiring ourselves out. But these people who didn't know how to speak English knew the scientific names of the birds. They would just put their hands into the basket and touch. So he said that, the Leothrix for us was like, the pugnax of our area. And of course, the green-tailed sunbirds, and the mesias, the silver-eared mesias, just beautiful, beautiful birds. I'm sorry, they don't look very great here. This is a good-looking mesia for one. And Lukendra Raseli was another travel agent, or now he's in a political position, but he was also running birding tours in the beginning. So these are some of Luke's photographs. The blue whistling thrush. If you come to Sikkim, you'll always find that in your vehicle, there's these birds always crossing the road and jumping down the slope. And invariably there will be the whistling thrushes, the blue whistling thrushes. And if you go to a forest, a higher forest, or especially these trees, which are called leucoseptrum, which even children kind of pluck to suck the nectar, the tree pies are very fond of them. And they are called also locally, kokole, for the sound they make. And of course, during the breeding season from North Sikkim, our pipits and wagtails and larks, they all breed up north and then they come down. The other one was a plum-based redstart. I'm showing you this picture, looks very ordinary. And but this is how some of the shops, the last remaining old-time shops in Sikkim. This is a store, a medical store, which you can see that has really old-fashioned kind of house. This is the shop and this is the house, the kitchen. So what is interesting is this part, this ventilator which they keep open. And why do they keep it open? This community, the single-handedly the Marwari community in Gangtok is responsible for the barn swallows on the main road. Just when the shops are all operating, there are hundreds of people going in and out, and the swallows will be darting amongst them, and they absolutely at ease with human beings. And the shopkeeper will put up a small platform, so that the birds, the fledglings don't fall. Even then, they'll go around making nests everywhere. And it's something, if you want to see barn swallows, go to the busiest part of Gangtok, and there they are, and they're breeding so comfortably. Imagine this nest is totally choked with these 4 young ones. But Lakpa has also got the birds breeding in his house. Now, this is from his own house. So barn swallows have places, or they look for places, even if we don't, if we change the habitat, like most of the shops in Gangtok can no longer provide this kind of thing. They've all got these modern fancy glass fronts, and the birds can no longer enter. Now, here's another interesting photograph. Gangtok is undergoing massive changes. It's a concrete jungle now. But long ago, I had written a write-up in the local newspaper about the singing tree. This is a tree called a cryptomeria, which is planted. They are exotic. They are not native, exotic. They are from Japan, Cryptomeria japonica. But these trees are very useful when there is a hailstorm, or when in the evening when the birds want to roost. So I was walking with Binla and Yuvina under this tree. This is the outpatient department of the hospital. Again, it was built by the Chogyal. And when we were crossing, this whole tree was just, cacophony, and the birds were like roosting and they were making this huge noise. But everyone was passing and nobody was paying attention. So I thought to draw attention by doing an article called The Singing Tree. And it's still standing. I hope it doesn't get cut off, because a lot of trees are making way for the smart city project. And then these sparrows, I found it very strange that in 91, till 91, I had not noticed house sparrows in Gangtok. And the only house sparrows I saw were at the entrance to Gangtok, the place called Malli and Rangpo. And Malli and Rongli. These are the two areas where there were house sparrows. In 91, I saw the first pair of house sparrows on MG Marg, or just above a photography shop. And today, the house sparrows and the tree sparrows are sharing the same habitat, and you're not even sure if they might be interbreeding. So it's really a very good chance for studies, about breeding of birds. And of course, we have the russet sparrow. So where everywhere else, the sparrow population may be declining, here we've got like 3 sparrows, earlier where we had only 2. And then, the young people who are now, with more knowledge and with more awareness, they started putting up these interesting kind of sightings in the local newspaper. And Sikkim Express has been very happy to always share, interesting information for people, because it's good news and it's colorful news. And people like colorful good news, and we should like colorful good news. So we've got like, the Great Indian Hornbill. We had even a tragopan, a satire tragopan that came into somebody's house just out in a village outside the sanctuary, which is opposite Gangtok. It's really amazing. Or, Kushal. Kushal is another young government officer in the revenue department, who's a great bird photographer. He photographed, my God, a darter right in North Sikkim eating goldfish from the, the area called Tingchim. There's a small lake at a place called Tingchim near a monastery. And he recorded the data there. So this kind of, the valleys, there are birds going down, there are birds going up. The farmers know the birds, migratory birds as Karang Kurung, because that's how they call when the water fowl are migrating. And then, of course, SOS started bringing out, based on these photographs, like everyone was contributing their best photographs. And they brought out 2 beautiful calendars, Rare Birds of Sikkim, Feathery Friends from Sikkim. So all these young SOS growing up, showcasing their skills, impressing the local people, especially the seniors, the adults who need actually more sensitizing than the younger ones, to whom we are actually bequeathing a very bad earth. So these are the kind of photographs that were there in the calendar. So these are the young photographers and the young scientists, school teachers, government people, Chong, of course, is now a professional birder. And so, we kind of made sure that, and of course, here also this time the forest department had given some funding. And so this was a kind of way that society, the organization grew. And then one fine day, Rohit also comes here. Rohit came to talk about eBird, and we had an eBird workshop where again we tried to involve all the local NGOs who had anything to do with the environment. We've got RP, who's running an NGO called ECOS, Ecotourism and Conservation Society of Sikkim. We have Priya, who's running the WWF office in Sikkim. We've got Dr. Satyadeep Chetri. We've got veterinarians, my son-in-law, by the way. And, all people, all kinds of lay people also we invited. And it was quite good. We learned quite a lot. And we even tried to do all these bird-related programs and give them publicity. We tried to make use of any expert birders coming to Sikkim by organizing small talks or events for them. Like when John Corder came in from the World Pheasant Organization, we had him give a talk to the forest department, to the local people. And then we had all these young people, Tashi Lepcha is another birder from East Sikkim, a professional birder. So, this way, the growth, I would say, from a place where I started where there was nobody to suddenly, slowly building up of this. So at that time, we actually tried to, pinpoint these people who were there in different areas and get them to do their work. Now, this map shows actually the protected area status of the state of Sikkim. Like the national park, the highest altitude national park, cum biosphere reserve, has been now declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not just for nature, but for culture as well. So, and the rhododendron sanctuary in North Sikkim, in the above Lachung. Of course, these are the 3 great lakes of the cold desert. Then we've got just opposite Gangtok, we have the Famonglo Bird Sanctuary, Wildlife Sanctuary. On the way to Nathula, the trade route, we have Chongnosla Alpine Sanctuary. We have this beautiful Pangolaka Wildlife Sanctuary on sharing borders with Bhutan and with West Bengal. There is the Neura Valley Wildlife Sanctuary or National Park. So there is contiguous forest for tigers and takin. Recently, again, a takin has been photographed in Lachung. And tigers have been photographed in camera traps along this route. And then in south, we have a very tiny 6 square kilometer bird sanctuary called Kitam. And another interesting rhododendron sanctuary on the border with Nepal and West Bengal. Here we have the Singalila National Park below Barse. So again, it's a huge corridor for animals and plants to travel. The reach is right from the national park, the cold desert, the Trans-Himalayas, down to, the lowland forest. Now, these are the most threatened areas of Sikkim, the lowland forest, because here a lot of pharmaceutical companies have set base, and most of them are on the very close to our river system, which are soon planned. If the hydel projects come through, all our rivers will just flow into tunnels into the seismic 4 or 5 zone. So something to really worry about. Then there was BAMOS, the Butterflies and Moths of Sikkim Nature Conservation Society. Again, you see, there's only old people are just the 2 of us, Nandan and me. Everybody is so young. Here's Masvika, the school teacher, Tenzing, the forester, this is Nappa,
This is also a young scientist, a lecture scientist. Lecture is supposed to be the original plant people whose people actually helped J.D. Hooker to collect all his specimens. And Nawangla has got a Limca Book of Records record for having the most number of butterflies, different butterflies sitting on him, almost 100. So very, very interesting people. Kavita has done scuba diving and a whole lot of, she's worked at Agumbe, very, very talented young girl. So, I mean, I'm just naming a couple of people over here. Then just a one picture to show David Lang. David Lang was a very old veterinary surgeon who was a retired veterinarian. Now he is no more, he just passed away some time back. But when he walks, like he loved Sikkim and he used to keep coming on, probably brought the first kind of tourism, nature tourism or, orchid tourism people in his field. So he has written a book called The Sikkim Himalaya Travels in the Cloud Kingdom. He's a very, very famous orchidologist in Great Britain. He's written books and he's quite famous over there. But when he came to Sikkim, he was not treated very well. They thought he was a spy because he wanted to go to the remotest regions and start looking for all kinds of things. So people thought that he was a spy. So, and we've accompanied him on some expeditions, and the people know about plants. Those who are botanists, they know about birds. It was something really interesting to know. And Chris Bowden, when he came for vulture sensitization, Chris also left behind these photographs of the red speckled wood pigeon. And of course, there are a few other birds over here by Ishe. The pot-winged grosbeak, the alpine accenter, the verditer flycatcher, and the oriental turtle dove. Here are some of the photographs I took a few days back outside the house in Lachung. And all of them, like these two guys are sitting on the same perch, one left, then the other one comes. The Tibetan shrike, what we used to call the greyback shrike, the white-collared blackbird, the ubiquitous drongo, and two kinds of laughing thrushes. This is the subspecies nigrimentis, the chestnut-headed laughing thrush, the black-faced, and of course, lots of scavenger, yellow-billed blue magpies. Just today, I saw on Facebook that red-billed blue magpie has been photographed and put on the eBird WhatsApp group. Now, this is interesting because when we were passing long back outside Mr. K.C. Pradhan's house, there was a red-billed blue magpie. And since we were in the vehicle and we didn't have cameras, we observed the bird, but we had no proof of, photographic proof of its existence. Then Karma Tempo, another young bird who I showed in the previous photograph, who earlier also was heading the SOS, he had sighted another red-billed blue magpie just in Gangtok above near the VIP colony. And again, he has no photographic proof. Now we finally have photographic proof. Where, scientists like Trevor Price and all, when they come, they say, no, I don't think these birds are there in Sikkim. But now they are. And here's proof, because young people are bringing it. And Sikkim is a haven for plants. I called it on Facebook the Sikkim splurge, because the area was just full of it. But it's a native poinsettia. And the amount of insect life, is on this plant, eating the leaves, nectaring. There's two kinds of ants you can see over here. There's a small fly, there's a beetle somewhere else. This entire thing, they all like little ecosystems in themselves. Coming slightly to North Sikkim, I want to tell you a very interesting thing. Anyone who first goes to Sikkim or is interested in Sikkim, read Hooker's Himalayan Journal. There are 2 volumes. And you can't enjoy Sikkim if you haven't read these 2 books. And he at that time, because there were no cameras and him being an artist as well, along with so many other talents, though he didn't respect the local people at all, just made use of them. But the knowledge he had was phenomenal. And he drew this in the Thangu Valley. And when I read this book and when my first trip to Thangu, to go to the Great Lakes up north, I saw this rock and I named it Hooker's Rock because it was there in the book. And I'm surprised today to see that, everybody these days is calling it Hooker's Rock. I mean, probably they have never read Himalayan journals, but now everyone who comes here calls it Hooker's Rock. So this was his drawing in 1847-48 when he surveyed Sikkim. And here's Hooker's Rock, 170 plus years later, it's still there. Though the place has changed, a lot of army installations, a lot of, there's a bridge over here, you can see, this is the Tista running down from north Sikkim. But Hooker's Rock is still standing. And he has written also about it, about the little rock that is there, everything is still there, almost 200 years on. And further again, in 91, I had, when I had gone to the cold desert, I used to stay with the nomads. So I had always take all my books with me. So the person who was the nomad who was turning the pages in the book, he pointed to this bird and he said, Tung Tung, Tung Tung is here. So they speak in Hindi because of the army. So I said, Tung Tung, are you sure? And I showed him many other birds. He kept coming back to Tung Tung. And then I said, if he comes again, please let me know. And the sad part of it was when the bird came to Mugutang in the Lonak Valley, which is a famous flyway for migratory birds. There's a huge marsh over there. The information was sent to me on an inland letter. And the inland letter reached me after 20 days, traveling a distance of maybe 70 kilometers. And by that time, I got the information, the birds had already flown. The nest had been disturbed because there were two camps of people on either side, one of the police, one of the army. And they went into the marsh to look for the egg. One of them dropped his watch, as I was told, and the birds didn't nest. But I wrote it up in the Journal of the NHS as a short note, just to record this event. And since then, again, the birds were not really able to settle because more and more, we got this China phobia and more and more kind of land and disturbances happening. So neither the domestic animals nor the wildlife, with all the increasing number of dogs, is able to live happily very much here. Still, in spite of that, the wealth that is there is unbelievable. So here is a black-necked crane, which said in the literature that it's there in Ladakh and then it's breeding in Arunachal and in Bhutan, but not in Sikkim. So in actually 2010, which was the International Year of Biodiversity, the WWF team, Priya and her team, they photographed a pair of black-necked cranes in 2010. After 91, that was the first photographic record that was there. And since then, almost every year, people have been able to photograph this bird. But the best part of it was that I live in Gangtok, and just 300 meters from my house, a young bird had landed a few years ago, and the lady who was teaching in the local school has taken photographs. Then another tourist has taken photographs of another black-necked crane all the way down outside the national park to the south of the national park at a lake called Trichipuri. It's supposed to be a wish-fulfilling lake. So you see the birds are actually traveling and getting photographed now. So the local people know about them, but we never had proof. Or here's another gentleman from outside the state, Limatem Gen Jamir, who again was a worker in the projects in Chungkhang in North Sikkim. He rescued an avocet. So before that, when I was traveling during my surveys, I'd come across 4 avocets at the base of the North Lonak and South Lonak glaciers. And I have a very dull photograph, which we published in the local forest magazine. But here are better evidences of the bird. So this is Lakpa at Lachung. This is a place where actually we have a house now. This is the village of Lachung, way below. It's quite disturbed now because every tourist who comes here has to go to Lachung. And if you come to Lachung, you have to go further north because that's where you find ibis bills. Avocets and ibis bills, they were just the opposite kind of beaks. And the most amazing birds, But of all things, we had this bird coming in Lakpa's Angan, in his backyard. Demersal crane. I think it's a demersal, isn't it? So, all these kind of feathered fantasies, the luge of grandalas, the males and females, electric blue males, and the way they fly. Even when we had closed our nets, when we were doing bird ringing, and Ali Hussein had closed his net, they flew past and some of them got trapped in the closed net. So it was so exciting. And again, new records, which may have been there in literature or in Dr. Salim Ali's bird book index, not a appendix saying that these may be found, these could be found. Now you have proof, we've got the solitary snipe, we've got the Eurasian curlew, we've got the black-tailed crake, which almost everybody is photographing these days in West Sikkim. And that Tragopan, Nakba calls it the strawberry on the ground. Of course, the most flamboyant of all in the bird of 9 colors. When we first started our first trip in 1980, where we didn't see flocks of laughing thrushes, but we saw flocks of blood pheasants. And when the person who was accompanied us just ran with his hands out stretched to the birds, they just kind of scattered a few meters away and didn't even have the sense to fly off. But 4 monal males, took off from the foliage and sailed down the valley, and it was the most magical sight. And as brilliant are these sunbirds, Piptanthus is a plant that grows the flowers at the same time as a rhododendron. So you've got these actually, fire-tailed sunbirds really love to feed on the nectar of rhododendrons. And this green-tailed sunbird also happened to come here. And Piptanthus is also a very plant with a lot of nectar. It's another shrub. But the beauty here is this fire-tailed Myzornis. It's a dream bird for most birders. These are birds that you just can't get enough of. Here, a young man called Tumbing. Tumbing is from Lachen, so he's a Lachenpa. He has taken it upon himself to photograph everything: landscape, animals, birds, butterflies, moths, slugs, everything. So there is, is a very valuable young man for Sikkim. So Tumbling has taken photographs of much, much better quality than mine. So I'm showcasing their photographs, all with their permission. I've spoken to them before this presentation, and they've all agreed to let me use their pictures, because I don't have pictures of these areas where I spent years and years roaming and trying to document what they were doing, what they were eating, what were the threats, how to deal with them, what happens to a yak that gets into a minefield area. A lot of kind of conservation issues are there in this region, which you just can't see from this one day. So these again, I think even George Schaller might have not seen the kind of Tibetan Argali population that is in Sikkim. I would say that probably we have the best population of Tibetan Argali in the world. Because even some of in Western Himalayas also, where they do occur, they said maximum you see maybe about 5, 10. Here, Dr. Ranjit Singh couldn't sit down. He was excited when he came and he said, Usha, you told me to go to the right spot. I think he photographed about 300 Tibetan Argali, unbelievable numbers. And because they are not hunted these days, they are pretty tame. They do run off, but they do let you take photographs. And of course, the Tibetan wild ass, the Kiang, is supposed to be the southern Kiang, another amazing animal. And when you watch them move, then you see, if one animal is trailing behind or it cannot walk, it will usually be the one whose foot has gone into a landmine area or injured. And then when it starts limping, then the stray and the free-ranging dogs start following. And then soon you have a lot of carcasses lying around. This is something that I've seen, and it's been very difficult for me to tackle, because promptly there is a whole lot of negative issues from the army and the other, the guardians of the border. So I've had to face a lot of difficulty in this. And these beautiful, all female and young animal of the Goa, which is the Tibetan gazelle. Now, strangely, when in 87, when Bukka had come to these areas, he said he found horns of Chiru. But since then, and he didn't find any animals, but he found a lot of these Tibetan gazelle, which he called Goa. And he hasn't also mentioned Kiang very much, though he has drawn them in his photograph, in his drawing. One of the most beautiful animals, and the way they run on these open plains is sight for sore eyes. But only human native inhabitants are these nomads. So I used to live in their shelters, either in the tent, in the yak hair tent, or in these stone shelters. And because it's difficult for me to drive down all the way to Lachen and then come up every morning. So for birds, in a very early morning, sightings for animals and birds are the best. So I used to live with them, and the amount of knowledge they have surpasses any scientist. They exactly where to go at what time, which are the grasses to, be careful about, which are the medicinal plants, which plants are good for yak, what is Yapsa gombu or Cordyceps sinensis, what are all these ginsengs and other medicinal herbs that grow there, the caterpillar fungus is Cordyceps, and of course they are yaks. They're really used to being ridden, but once a year recently, also the program has got over. There is a festival where the yak race is held, and this is the last flock of the Highland sheep, the Tibetan domesticated Tibetan sheep, Highland sheep. There's a shepherd who is looking after them. One shepherd in the whole of Sikkim, the last shepherd. So we had tried to motivate him, and he even got the India Biodiversity Award for this indigenous species. For looking after and for maintaining this herd of indigenous species, whose wool has been studied by scientists, and they say that it's even better than merino. So that is something. Nowadays, young entrepreneurs are also from Sikkim, Sonam Gyaltsen, they are looking into this. But these are like the corrals, for the animals. They're all open. So, attacks from dogs is actually more common than attacks by snow leopards. The snow leopards also driven away by the dogs. And I have come across dead snow leopards, dead minks, dead Tibetan fox, all kinds of dead predators. And everywhere we've got this huge population of free-ranging dogs. I used to call them feral dogs, but then Dr. Johnson said they are not feral because they do come to people. You should call them free-ranging dogs. Now here's a picture of Gangtok. You can see it is a young man called Neeraj Thapa who has photographed. You can see this beautiful picture of a pair of foxes, Indian the hemp fox, Vulpes vulpes, hiding in this sea of miscanthus and other grasses, these anopheles, beautiful. I mean, they're breeding here just above Gangtok, and you can still hear them. And some places in the town are still called Yalgaon, for jackals. The place also has a lot of jackals. And after that, the 1923 record. Nowadays, I said a lot of people are getting records of king cobras in Sikkim. It's just a brief glimpse, but surprisingly, just above Gangtok, the Burmese python was injured and lying there. And when we got the news and rushed up there, somebody had already taken away this animal. It's beautiful, beautiful animal. We all thought, we have got the Indian python, Python molurus, but this is the Burmese python. This is something, an issue which will take its own hour to talk about, but this is something we should all be aware and keep at the back of our minds. See what happens when we kind of promote this kind of tourism, rampant, unregulated tourism. Why we should go the way, that I've been talking about, a more sustainable, a more eco-friendly way. So I'm just showing a very small picture of a mosquito that I took recently, which is nectaring on this Globa cascata, the dancing lady. Very beautiful. I'm not a good photographer, but I took this with my mobile, so I thought I must share with you that the smaller life forms are often not documented because you only look at the glamorous life around us. The biodiversity of Sikkim is so rich. There's any amount of researchers, the amount of research that has been done in Sikkim, probably nowhere else. But this information is not available to us. The kind of medicinal plants that people eat, the wild edibles that are easily available in this season, fern, nettles. There's a whole lot of stuff. The fish mint that I was recently writing about. Lots of interesting plants. So I'd just like to end my presentation by showing pictures of these people who are actually going to take Sikkim forward in the direction that it should, so that we don't have faulty infrastructure projects. But if these youngsters are, their hands are strengthened, their feet are strengthened, their minds are strengthened to take on issues and fight for, their right to the best kind of livelihood that Sikkim has to offer. I mean, of course, this is Gadget Man, Peter Lobo, Nosang Limbu, who has also got a book on butterflies, and he's also, I think, he's a politician now. Another young man, Chong, of course. Then Sonam Pincho, this is Sonam Wangchuk, all of them have got these wonderful butterflies. The birdwing here, there is the Krishna peacock, there's Nosang is very fond of the Blue Duke. And some of the other BAMOS members, Nawangla, the Limca holder, he's the president. He has got kind of the magic, magnet man, butterfly magnet. Doji, who has been taking selfies with the beautiful blue peacock. And the kind of butterfly diversity is really amazing. So most of the people whom I've spoken about are in this picture. We've got ECOS, we've got BAMOS, we've got SOS, we've got Green Circle, our parent NGO, people like architects, bankers, professors, tourism people, teachers, veterinarians, artists and poets and businessmen, teachers, whom don't we have here? There's a person from advocate, from the law, a very senior lawyer, students. I think we are headed in the right direction if we just give young people a chance. So I'd like to end with these last 2 slides. Minla, this is Minla, and Yuina is not here, she's in Bangalore. But I was very excited that Rohan came to do the map for Gangtok. And Minla had commissioned him for pictures of what this is the best, I think, birthday gift I could have ever got. With my 2 babies depicted so wonderfully by Rohan. So I'm ending with this slide of Minla and Nigina. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't overspoken. Thanks, Nikhil. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Toma, over to you.
Yeah, no, I think thanks so much, Usha. Wonderful, wonderful, charming presentation. And I'm sure everybody is ready to ask questions. So folks, I think you can type in your questions here for Usha. And we'll start taking some of them. Okay, they're pouring in. So I'll start picking some of them, Usha. In which parts of Sikkim, this is from Anirudh Behel, in which parts of Sikkim are tigers found, and are they found in the Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve?
Well, so far, I think our tigers are migrating from the tigers and Takin are migrating from the Neura Valley and the Bhutan borders. So some people do say that they have crossed the Tisa and gone to the right bank towards the national park. But most of our records right from the beginning, in fact, my mother-in-law had seen a tiger in Yungthang Valley, which is again all along the, the flank, the extreme right of Sikkim, the entire flank of these mountains, the flank of the Chumbi Valley. That's been the tiger's traditional migratory route. In fact, my mom-in-law's younger brother, whom we call Hunter Mama, he has shot the tiger in Lachung, and there's a record in the JBNHS. And the skull of the tiger is still there in Lachung. So mostly they have been migrating, but if they are these young tigers who have been migrating, they probably go back if they have not been hunted out. But the recent camera trap pictures are just amazing, huge adult tigers. We had actually got plaster casts of males just maybe about few kilometers above Gangtok. And that time, I think Peter Jackson had also come and he had seen them. And I had also I was sent by the department to check out a whole herd of corralled female yaks had been killed by a large predator. So we were looking for scratch marks, and we saw all the bamboo undergrowth had been kind of where the carcasses of the yaks, the female yaks always hide in one place. So the animal had got into the corral and killed all of them. And we could find little fetal bones because most of those yaks were pregnant. So the tiger has been regularly coming in.
The next one is about what was your most memorable incident in the field in Sikkim? This is from Naval.
Oh, so many.
Must be so many. Yeah, I'm sure.
Good ones, bad ones. There are too many memories. Yeah, but all in all, it's been a really great journey from being, a lone ranger, I would say, to now kind of being able to step back and see all the young people, all over the place taking on and really enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Lots of memories.
Yeah, I think this whole presentation has been so full of them. I'm sure there's more, but what's the best time to visit? I'm sure many people want to know this for seeing the orchids, birds, and butterflies.
The fun thing about orchids, that there's some species or the other in bloom throughout the year. Almost 12 months, there are orchids blooming. The best time is usually the tourist time. Would be like April, May, June, and then October, November. So these are the two good times. We want to see flowering plants, then April, May, June is the best. And if we want to see great views, then October, November, because at that time the mountains you can see and they're very clear.
Yeah, we were running out of time. Just the last one. Sikkim has another distinction of being only organic state of the country. So did going completely organic help the wildlife in Sikkim?
I think so. Long back, I had done a survey looking for this the bees. I was looking for rock bees, so that because bees are the main pollinators, and because earlier there was a lot of chemical pesticide being used, they said that the soil has also got impoverished, and there's a problem happening. So because the bees were being affected, I tried to do a survey looking for rock bees, and then I heard a lot of negative comments from the local people saying, because of these efforts of the forest department and all, we have lost our bees. Earlier we used to have so many, and they used to kind of drain out the honey. And there are in Nepal, and you find a lot of videos on how the people extract honey from the rocks from the huge mountainsides. So I had tried to do a survey for them, and I found not many. But these days, you can really find that there are a lot of beehives coming back, and I think it's because the state has gone organic and we are not using pesticides. We're not supposed to use at all, but I have a feeling somewhere the people are using a little bit. But overall, it's been very good for wildlife, for birds, for insects, butterflies.
Nikhil, how are we doing on time? Do we have time for more? There are 2-3 more questions.
Or just you can go fast forward fast, sure.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is how has the literacy rate influenced the growth of environment movement in Sikkim? Can that be replicated? That's from Arvind.
Yeah, we have good literacy rate, but I think our state has joined the Indian mainstream not so long ago, So people have become quite dependent on the freebies by the government and from the central government, So I think the new generation is realizing the harmful effects of being over dependent on government support and for every small thing. So literacy, really now, with Corona and people using the internet and all, I think getting exposure to what is happening outside Sikkim has been helpful, which is good, I think, in a way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Probably the last question we're taking here now. Wanted to check if you were able to record swans in Kechuperi Lake, West Sikkim. I saw them when I was 10 years old. This is from Ritu. Swans.
No. I mean, I've got like bears, pochard, and every time you go out, something or the other new you find. So there we had got like mergansers and all are very common. And swans, I don't think so. I think people like Lappa and all would know because they regularly visit these areas. But so far, no swans that I know of.
Yeah. Okay.
But honey guides, of course, the best part of it is we look for the honey guide.
Okay. I think we'll just then wrap
so
up with
much.
all the questions. Yeah. Thank you so much, Usha. I don't think we can get enough of.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Over to you, Nikhil.
Thank you all. And that was a really nice, wild Sikkim, Usha. Thank you so much. And I will see you all of you next week to see The Nocturnal World by Shivang Mehta.
Okay.